Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar, a webinar that we are organizing for CENELEC Technical Body Officers on the submission interface. So the webinar will explain you how to submit your documents from TCs. My name is Els, and I will be moderating the webinar in the background. As usual, you will all be muted, so you don't have the possibility to raise your questions out loud, but please use the Q&A panel for submitting your questions. The speakers will try as much as possible to reply your questions during the presentations. Should your question remain unreplied, please note that we will make a Q&A report available for you. The webinar has been recorded, so you will also receive the link to the recording and the complete set of slides in your inbox later today. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to my colleagues Melanie, Sebastian, and Gonzalo, who are here for you to present the submission interface. So please, guys, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gonzalo Ascensão, so I'm the account manager in the digital production team, and I will give you a short introduction on the submission interface and why we are moving into the submission interface, and then later on, Melanie and Sebastian will give a little bit more details on the tool itself. So to start with, the submission interface is now replacing the current way of provision of documents to CCMC that you may be aware is by email. And as you can imagine, this is creating some weak points in the system. So at the moment, all this process is fully manual from both sides. And of course, increases the number of resources necessary to deal with the process. Currently, we also have no connection between your submission and the metadata of the project. You know, it could be the work item, the language, to be provided of the document and so on. This, of course, leads into a very low transparency in the system, and you're also not necessarily aware where the process is at a certain moment. To complete this situation, you have no means at the moment to check the traceability of your documents, and there may be questions about it. Also, in addition to that, whenever we have documents with a big volume, there are issues in the submission as well, and so this is also one of the elements to be solved. Now, what the submission interface will allow us to do. So, first of all, you will only be able to submit documents whenever you have a work item or a project number, and then you will be able to provide documents relevant for that project. As I said, this allows a series of other aspects. There are some metadata connected to the project, and then, for instance, if it's linked to legislation or if they have other elements to be taken into account. There will be an automatic validation upstream, so when you are providing the documents, you will be informed whether the submission is successful or not, and then there are next steps in this submission, and you can also follow and trace the different status of your documents, which have been submitted to CCMC. In terms of benefits, of course, we hope that this tool will be user-friendly. Will enable you to also reduce errors in the submissions, also on our side, which will facilitate the connection with the metadata. So this will also avoid the errors in the connection of the projects and the documents. It will be more efficient in principle, and also enable the transparency for everyone in the system. More and more, of course, we will be able to trace your documents, to monitor, and to have a clear follow-up on each case. Finally, just for your information, the tool is already available. At the moment, we are running in a transition phase, so you can submit documents through the submission interface, or alternatively, by email still. Of course, we recommend you to start using the submission interface to get, to know the tool. And after the 1st March 2023, then we will be moving completely to the submission interface. And then I will give the word to Melanie, which will guide you through the tool itself.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So I'm Melanie. I'm the IT project manager in charge of this project submission interface. So today we will look at who can access submission interface and how to access submission interface. We will have a look at what's on the homepage and how you can use it to facilitate your work. what kind of files need to be submitted, how you can submit them, and little explanations on from Gonzalo on harmonized standards, fields, linked to harmonized standards. And then Sebastian will give you a walkthrough image quality check with tricks and tips. And then we will let you know where you can join us in case of issue, questions, or feedback. So first, there's a direct link to submission interface, which is the one displayed on the screen, but you can also click, if you go to the CENELEC expert area from the CENELEC website, you can, in the application and services, so that's the first page that's opening when you reach the CENELEC expert area, there's a card with all the information on submission interface, so direct link to the application and a small user manual that you can use to find your way through the applications. Login is with your IC CENELEC login and password, and access is given to secretaries, acting secretaries, and assistant secretaries in EMS, and those are roles allocated by CCMC. So, quick overview of the tool. So there's a dashboard, which is the home page where you can have filters, sorting functions, and you can see your TC and what's going on in it. Then we will look at the form, look at the features on the forms, what is available, what you can do, what you cannot. And then we'll have a look at what's happening once we have submitted something. How is the message given to you when something was accepted, when something was rejected, all of this. So we'll have a look in the application. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go out of the presentation and I will open submission interface. I will just reload it because it's been open a while now, so it's not going to like. So this is a quality environment that we use to validate the tool, so it's a bit slower than the production environment. So you have, this is the home page, so you can see that I'm connected to several TCs. So on the top, you have the name of the different columns. So the first one is for the technical body with sorting function and filter that you have on all columns. Then you have the work item number, the reference, if any, is recorded in our database. The stage code, which corresponds to the milestone. So it's the main stage code that you can see when opening projects online on the first page, not the other page that is the detailed one. There's a deadline that should correspond to the stage code, but this is still on, we're still working on that one because it's a bit off, if I may say so. So that's going to be corrected a little bit later. Then you have the submission type. So you've got all already your work item. The line is letting you know for what you can submit a work item. And then you have the submission date. So if something was already submitted, so you can see that I have submitted something this morning. And then you have the status, which allows you to sort out your work items, what is not started, what is submitted. So basically it's in between, like delivered to CCMC, but you're waiting for the result, if it's accepted or rejected. You can also sort on your rejected items if you need to change anything and resubmit them. Then on the selection column, you have a hyperlink where you can see a view if something was already submitted, accepted, or rejected. So you can consult what files were submitted. So if I open, for example, the accepted view, you can see that a revisable format and a PDF format were submitted. And then you have, if nothing was done yet with the work item, you have the start, or you can see that you can open a form. So now I'm going to filter on my PC, on my test CC. So you can see, so we see only the CENELEC TC. As you can see here, you have one item that was submitted, one that was rejected. And you can also see, for example, the history of work items. So you can see here for the work item 70743, it was accepted as a first working draft. So you can still view what was delivered when you delivered the first working draft. And it's ready to be delivered as a vote for a TS or a TR. So that's also one of the things that you have on the dashboard. So we now open a form for work item that has been rejected. And you can see from here, so the status is red. So you could see that previously the accepted one was green, the rejected one is red. So it's really visual for you to see if you did good or not. Then there's a message from CCMC, which is giving you the reasons why it was rejected. Or you can have a standard message saying that CCMC will contact you. So there's nothing for you to do at the time, just wait for CCMC to contact you. You can see what was submitted. And so maybe that is an indication on why it was rejected. And then you can also, you have a button to correct the submission. So if I click on correct the submission, this is opening your work item for a first submission. And then you can just work on that one. You don't need to look for it. So when you open a form, you have a certain number of data. So there's the work item number to just see in what work item you are working, in case you are interrupted, for example, the reference, if any, so your technical body, and the type of submission. So in this case, we have a draft from a vote. There's a certain number of data on directives and standardization requests, which Gonzalo will explain a bit in a couple of minutes. And then you have a check for those data. And then you have all the fields. So first field is the language, which is default English for CENELEC always. So this is already set for you. Then you have some fields that are mandatory. The one with the red star, you have to provide something in those fields. Then you have other fields that are not mandatory, but there's still a check button so that to make sure that, yes, either I am providing a file or I confirm that I'm not providing a file, and I know that I'm not providing it. It's not, I have forgotten to provide a file. So this is acting a bit like a checklist. So in the fields, you can either drop a file, so which I will show you a little bit later, or you can click and that will open your dialog box to navigate to your computer and get the files that you need. Now you have also on the fields a little question mark that is giving you explanation on the field and hyperlinks sometimes to the boss or to more information on that specific field. So now we'll go back up to the directive information for Gonzalo, and I will go with you through those special fields.
Thank you, Melanie. So basically what you can see on the screen is some evolution of the metadata related to the project. So for instance, this is an area that we are expanding. So you can see it now in the submission interface. It's not yet available in projects online, but we are working to do that at the moment. So you can see for the type of legislation, if there is an as assessment or if there's a commission assessment, if you need Annex Z, and if the method for citations in the official journal, because there are several possibilities. And you know, there is a quite varied number of pieces of legislation and a series of combinations as well. If you encounter any issue or any missing information, do not hesitate to report this information to us. Of course, you also see the reference to the standardization request, so this is also an important element. If you scroll down, Melanie, thank you very much. So continuing what Melanie explained about the different elements of the submission. So we have a specific field for the Annex Z, you know, that you can provide whenever it's necessary. We also have the field for the justification on normative references. So for harmonized standards, you have to keep in mind that the normative reference should be dated. Of course, for parallel work, the dating is done in the Annex A, so you don't need to be so careful, I would say, in that sense. But for an homegrown project, you need to justify in case you're not dating the normative references. So then we also have the field, so you can provide the comments from the inquiry, so for a submission to the formal vote, and also the comments from the consultant in case there was assessment at the previous phase. Then for the directives dealing with safety risks, you know, you need to provide the risk assessment. So for LVD, you need to provide the risk assessment, and you have a specific field to provide the document. We have also included one specific field for the checklist for harmonized standards, which is mandatory for all the submissions to CCMC for homegrown work and recommended in some cases for the parallel work. And if you have additional documents to be provided, our recommendation is to add it in the others field. So whenever there is additional supporting information that you may want to provide to CCMC. An important point to highlight, and then Melanie, if you scroll down, so in case you want to provide additional information, we suggest to include this information in the comments to CCMC, and to be as brief as possible, of course. Here, just to remind you that in most of the submissions, you will not need the transmission notice. So this, if you have comments to be provided to CCMC, you should provide it in this field. Maybe just as a last point, in case we are under a first working draft circulation and you need to have an as assessment, we also suggest to include this in the comments field so that this information can be retrieved and then the as assessment being requested. That's essentially it from my side, and now we will move on.
Yes.
Next.
So now I'm gonna try live a submission to show you how it's acting when doing what you have to do, when if you're doing something that that you shouldn't, and then it's going to trigger an error. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first provide documents, because this is what I need to provide. So I will show, for example, if I provide a document that is not containing any figures. If the document is a little bit big, or if you're losing the connection just as I am now, it may take a little bit of time. So here it's analyzed the document and decided that there's no figure inside the document. So there's no possibility anymore to drop anything in the graphic file field. Then I need to provide the PDF format, which I do. And then I need to check those boxes just to make sure that I know I haven't forgotten any file. I just know that I don't have anything to provide. So once this is done, let's say, for example, that I forget to check this box here to say I've reviewed the data and it's fine for me. I don't need anything to be changed, and I still submit. Then this directly an error message is triggered. So you have red boxes saying that this correct what is indicated as an error. So you can see that the field has become red, and this is where you should check the box or add a file or check a box if it's further down in the form. So the error messages stay so that you have the time to read them, and you can close them yourself when you finish reading them. So they're just not popping up and then disappearing before you have a chance to do anything with those. Also, if I remove this file that doesn't have any figures, and I will provide a file with figures. Okay. I provide a file that is containing figures, but here, so you have the choice that I have the separate figure files and I provide them to CCMC. So you just need to drop the zip file in here, or I don't have any figure files. There's figures in my document, but I don't have any. So you can choose to check and say, I don't have any figure files to provide to CCMC. So when all this is done, you can easily submit your documents. You can and you can submit your document. So in this case, I have forgotten, as usual, to check the box. And so now I can submit again. So it depends on the size of your files. It may take a bit more time or a bit less time. So if it's really small, no figures, it will go quite easily through. If it's a really big file, it may take more time. So once it's submitted, but you are given the form again that with the result of what you just did. So you have again your work item, you have your standard reference technical body, submission type, and you can see it was submitted today, and then it's waiting for a CCMC approval. You can see the result of what we do. So we put a revisable format, a PDF format, and we put the commenting form of the inquiry. For the other fields, no files were provided. So For submission interface itself, that's it. But submission interface is also integrated with image quality check, which is allowing you to have a thorough check of your figure files to provide enough quality for the XML. So I will leave now the floor to Sébastien, who will walk you through image quality check.
So hi everyone, I'm Sébastien. I'm working at the production team at CCMC. And as Melanie mentioned, the submission interface is linked with the image quality check, which will run a check of the best quality of images for XML conversion and rendering. You can see here the requirements that are not the requirements for CENELEC, but still are the best option that we have found. So in a TIFF format, resolution of 600 dpi, the scaling, meaning the sizing inside the Word document, is 100%, and compression LZW. You do have two types of insertion of images. Either the images are linked, which is the best option and preferred one, and that allows as well to edit the figures outside of the documents, and so that it can be updated automatically within the Word document without having to reinsert them again. The other option is to embed them. This would require then a manual update in case of the modification of figures. That being said, that will change the way that you might provide the figures within the submission interface. So if they are linked, as I said, the preferred way is to link them, then you can use the graphic file field. Otherwise, you will need to zip your figures all together and insert them in the others field. So because otherwise it will block at some point, because the quality check will be trying to run in the background. You do have guidance on how to use the image quality check, the tips, and yeah, further guidance. It's not soon available. It's already available on the CENELEC POS. You do have the path where you can find those information. Here is the information on how to connect to the image quality check. So from the projects online directly, you do have the little button you can click that you will ask them for your logins. This is the home page, where in the middle you can drag and drop a zip file containing the Word document and the figure files, or you can just click on the button choose to browse your computer. Then click on submit, and you will have a pop-up window displayed on the left side, which can be also downloaded as an Excel file displayed on the right side. The first step of this check will actually check the figure files contained in the zip file. It will check for the file naming, the resolution, the compression. The second tab will check the actual figures within the Word document. So it will check how the figures are linked, the sizing, the scaling. Everything that will be highlighted in yellow or orange is stating an error that needs correction. However, the only exception is, as you can see on the left-hand side, you have is link absolute column. This one will be highlighted and the box will be ticked in case that it's the correct, it's linked correctly, I'm sorry. This is instruction on how to insert and link the figures in the best way possible. So from the file, from the insert tab on the top ribbon, select picture. This device browse the figure you want to insert. And from the insert button, select the insert and link. Here you can see information on how to find if your figures are linked in the document. And on the right side, you can have, this can be very handy for large documents with many figures in it, in order to get the document a bit lighter and easier to process on your end. would be to unsave the pictures from the document so that it's not too heavy. Of course, saving them back is very important before submitting them to CCMC. This is information on how to get the scaling information. So I mentioned the scaling output size, you could call it. When you double click on the image in Word, you can select the little square with an arrow down from the size area, and that will bring you the pop-up window with the scaling. In this example, the height and width are 100% as should be. And you have the original size of the picture that's shown below. Should those not be 100%, then the scaling, the resizing should be done with the appropriate software on your end, for instance, Photoshop. And the last window, the last tab, sorry, from those report is the word shapes. Those are designed to find the shapes that are within the documents, usually auto shapes, text boxes that needs to be removed. The only line that needs to be disregarded on this tab is the embedded object mat type. It will look for equations in mat type, which are not blocking the document in any ways, but it is just for reference. And as you can see that the total, in this example, the total is 2 out of the 3 objects found in the document because one of them is a mat type. In order to find shapes in the document that needs to be removed, the first tip would be to enable the paragraph mark for a better visibility. Here is how to do it. Then you can navigate the different graphics, which will look for images, shapes, object equations. And this will be by pressing Ctrl F on your keyboard. It will open the navigation pane. And from the magnifying glass, you can select graphics and navigate with the arrows up and down. And this is an example here below of the a shape that was hidden behind the word necessary. You do see the little gray square. And in order to delete it, you can right click on the blue anchor that's on the left side and select cut. Of course, we are always available should you have any questions, feedback, or issues, of course. There is already guidance on the CENELEC expert area and CENELEC bus. But for other questions, do not hesitate to contact us at production@cenelec.eu. And if nothing works at all, then there will be a case to be handled for our colleagues from IT support at cenelec.eu.
So now we have a few minutes. If you have some questions, you can make your questions in the chat, and we will answer to them if there are still questions.